Morning, hello. I'm back and loving every minute of it. This fantastic weather is tickling my fancy. Back to my holy and sacred life that I love so much. And I came home to find the delight and the blessing of Gavin's Newsom's new book. I'm so excited about it. Young Man in a Hurry. It is absolutely beautiful here, back on the coast. The flowers are in bloom. Oh my gosh, when I left, I was hoping I would come back to, let me show you, these little Hawaiian beauties. These flowers, oh, they smell just like Hawaii. They are absolutely amazing. They smell absolutely amazing. And they look so beautiful. Look at how cute they are. They've got these round, little tiny round flowers. And I also came back to a plethora of these. A plethora or a plethora. Doesn't matter how you say it. Look. Oh, the smell. See if I can cut one of these off or not. I like to keep some of these in my bedroom at night because the smell is just so fantastic. Look at that. Oh my God. I'll come over here and shut this gate. Shut that gate. Look at that beautiful moss. Is that just not the best thing ever? I love that moss. Okay, I'm going to do a little reading from the book. Yeah, I'm going to do a little reading from the book. And oops. Let's get started. Let's get started. Young Man in a Hurry. I've already am a few pages in, and I don't know if he had someone, help him. They call it a ghostwriter. If I were merely the governor of California, I might let the darkness sink deeper inside me, but I am a husband and a father who doesn't want the convulsions of nature and politics to be all that his children remember of this time. And so on this day, the eve of the 4th of July, my wife Jen and I have decided to take the kids on a family excursion, a kayaking trip, beyond our backyard. On the other side of a sandbar and a park is the American River. I want to teach them history its waters carry. Upstream from our house in the year 1848, James Marshall, a dream seeker from New Jersey, found himself diverting enough of the river's flow to build a lumber mill for Johann August Sutter. Captain Sutter, as he liked to be called, was a fugitive who had traveled an even greater distance than Marshall to reinvent himself. The captain had erected a fort in present-day Midtown Sacramento and was looking to build the first empire of California. He couldn't very well see his way without lumber. The mill was nearly finished on the morning of January 24th, 1848. Marshall caught sight of 3 shiny nuggets in the ditch beside the river. The cry of gold echoed. Tens of thousands of miners who knew little about mining arrived the very first afternoon from every corner of the globe that very first year. Madness ensued. As the newcomers rushed to the Sierra foothills running past Sutter's fort, the captain could see the spoiling of his dream, if not the ruin that would soon befall him. Of course, the true invention of California was a story the school children of my generation were never taught. Certainly by the nuns at Notre Dame des Victoires, where we wore a little sailor outfit and blue socks up to our knees, and I got booted out in the third grade for one shortcoming after another. Certainly not my teachers at Neil Cummings K-8 or Redwood High School. I love this man. He's traveled all my old stomping grounds. He's a Californian. I love people from California. I really do. The story of California's original sin would have required a more forthright narration. How a century before gold's finding, the decimation of California's indigenous had commenced. While it played out haphazardly, there's no mistaking the results. California was born in genocide, as was, he hasn't added it, let's not just blame California, the whole United States, from Rhode Island to the Gulf Stream waters, the whole story is one of genocide, as does any conquering, as we are doing in Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, all of those countries, as well as South America, Guatemala, El Salvador, all that. I often find myself measuring this history, wondering about the warp speed at which the gold rush shot us forward, and whether so many of our challenges today are because we've never really rid our spirit of this voracious impulse. I weigh the water we are now mining from hundreds of feet below ground, and the oil we keep on fracking. The lessons of the gold rush, the mountains that melted, the rivers that fouled, we Californians did not heed. Our collective forgetfulness, the grooved pattern by which we reach too far and grab too much again and again, is its own force of nature to behold. How come we can't do wind power? Guess it might interfere with the oil power, right, people? Got to keep that oil pumping. Pump and dump, baby. Pump and dump. Did you know that oil is not a renewable resource? At the same time, I marvel at our capacity to invent and reinvent, the grit and ingenuity that run deep in the same spirit, and imagine a new way forward that changes not only California's future, but also America's future, the world's future. The doomsayers in the East have been predicting the demise of the California dream for as long as I've been dreaming it. And yet here we are, three iconic cities along the coast, the Central Valley that stands the most practical farming belt in the whole world. A smaller valley called Silicon that gives birth to the new age technology, winemaking in the north, movie making in the south, an organic foods movement hatched on cattle custom farms and in the mom-and-pop groceries of Santa Cruz and Berkeley. Together, the regions in California are creating a new green economy that lessens our reliance on fossil fuels and offers prototypes that might stave off the worst of climate change. The talking heads of can pour over the California migration and out-migration all they want, pronouncing mass exodus where none exists, but the fact remains, it is this regenerative California that continues to act as a powerful lure to a new generation of dreamers, all races, all creeds, from all places, not so different from the 49ers. Whew, that was a very long paragraph. I learned first from my father on those trips to the upper American River where water and fish ran wild that California's open arms must inevitably extend to saints and scoundrels alike. Often they are in search of the same thing, proper dirt on which to stage the next revival, be it the second or third act. What they find at continent's edge in the real and imagined of the Golden Land isn't always what they're looking for. As a judge who sat on county and state appellate benches, my father saw his share of the dreamers at their highest and lowest. I've seen my share of them too. Whatever frontier legend invigorates them, they come with the same look in their eye. They needn't be completely true, and they needn't be completely loyal. They tap into our spirits and hundreds of millions of dollars in subsidies. And sometimes they move to Texas or Florida. May their landing places greet them with great fanfare, for it is California they take with them. And that, my friends, is the moral and the lesson of the story. California is a state of mind, baby. It's a magical, magical place, California. It was this same fever that brought the Newsoms here from County Cork, Ireland, 6 generations ago. My great-great-grandfather, the first to land, was a cop who walked a beat in San Francisco. The year of his arrival was never given a specific date. Whenever my father was asked how far back our family traced its San Francisco roots, he would add to the myth. It seems the policeman didn't come here, he was here. As San Francisco appeared, he appeared. Policeman to politician took 150 years, and it is thanks to the American story, the California story, that I now find myself governor of the most daring, magical, cursed, and blessed state in the Union. My God, if we could only all be Californians. California. The magic, the myth, the mystery. The coast. Well, I'm loving to be back on my coast, but you know what? I gotta go out and torture myself in the desert. I have to go torture myself in the desert every once in a while to appreciate it. Before I took office and moved to this private bluff in a Sacramento burg called Fair Oaks, all my years had been shaped by the city of San Francisco. The city of San Francisco. Growing up, my sister Hillary and I stayed with our mother, Tessa, who juggled 3 jobs to keep a roof over our heads because our father was so inattentive to money. That's probably a kind way of putting it, isn't it? In those first years after their divorce, he fled 200 miles away to Lake Tahoe, and I struggled to find ways to reach him. Out in nature, kayaking down the Americans, something would open up in him. We paddled toward a sandbar, and he'd tell me a story or recite a line from Yeats. The future years had come, dancing to a frenzied drum, out of the murderous innocence of the sea. We'd find a spot where the river calmed and a large rock stuck its flat head out of the water, and I'd climb atop it and stretch out my long, skinny body to the sun and push off with both legs. No matter that it was summer, the water was ice cold. As I drove beneath and swam, I kept my eyes open, for this was the American, and there was no telling what I might find on its sandy bottom. I was looking for an artifact or treasure to add to the story. While my father's physical presence remained episodic throughout my childhood, once again, another kind way to put that his father abandoned his family, he became an intellectual and spiritual force for me when I got older. I only needed to dial his number or sit across the table from him over dinner to benefit from his knowledge and wisdom. In my more solitary moments as governor, it hits me that I have no one I can call on to fill his absence, no one who might listen to my fears and anger and respond with understanding, savvy, and an erudition that brings with it history and philosophy and literature. Because you want to know why? You want to know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because these type of men and women are being pushed out of society. People who have brains, who have a knowledge, who have a systematic process and a way of thinking that is intellectual has been downgraded now. It's all about the app. It's all about the dumbing down of America. Today, another unexpected heat wave sits down on the West Coast. My experts tell me that this wildlife season could outdo last year's, which was the worst in recorded history. Huge chunks of landmass are primed to explode. As many as 10,000 of our giant sequoias, among the oldest living organisms on Earth. And where do they live? Where did they choose to live? Here in California. Perished in last year's blazes. The trees, which can grow as tall as 300 feet and as wide as 30 feet, evolved not only to withstand fire, but to thrive as a species because of it. Their bark is practically fireproof, and their cones utilize flame to produce seedlings. But these are not the blazes that have shared 3,000 years of history with the oldest of the trees. These conflagrations are born of a different nature, tornadoes of fire that incinerate tree crowns dating back to the Sumerians. Do you know who the Sumerians are? If you don't know who the Sumerians are, go online and look it up. There's actually videos here on YouTube that tell you about the Sumerians as well. An ancient people. I try not to worry about any of this as we paddle down the American River on the eve of 4th of July. As it turned out, only Hunter, our oldest boy, wanted to come along. He and I sit in one kayak, Jen in the other. The water's so cold and clear, we can see the fish swimming beneath us. I do not have to reach for sentimentality to hear an echo from my childhood. I just need a memory of the season. The stretch for kayaking isn't quite the wild American my father and I first rafted and fished more than 40 years ago. I'm not a replica of my dad, a board member of the Friends of the River who fought to keep another dam from being built on the American. And Hunter isn't a replica of me, though he has the same fascination with old historic bridges we pass under, and the same ache to jump from a rock onto the river. About halfway down, he finds his rock, climbs upon it, and leaps in. He is now swimming with the steelhead, shads, stripers, and rainbows. It is summertime. That was the prologue. If you want to read a really amazing book that I have been taking my time with for a long time, read Obama's book. I can't remember the name of it. He wrote it after his 8-year presidency. And he is an amazing writer. To me, I love Gavin, but not everybody's a writer, right? And I think he's doing a really good job. I would like to know if he had a ghostwriter, but Obama wrote his book, and it is poetic justice. Love it, love it, love it. I can't read it slow enough. Chapter 1. It's been 3 years since my father's death, and his stories, with their perfect beginnings, middles, and ends, come back to me at the oddest time. He was an intellectual who spent almost all his solitary hours reading. He didn't leave Hillary and me much in the way of an estate, but he did pass on his prized collections of novels, short stories, memoirs, tomes of history, and poetry. He left us the Russian greats, the English greats, and most proudly the Irish greats. My luck, I've never been able to decipher a single classic of literature. Who would have guessed, certainly not my father, that his only son would be dyslexic? One of the struggles of my life is that my brain has trouble processing words on page. If the text is too crowded, the story too woven, I lose track. My brain does better with nonfiction, but only if the words have room to breathe. This reminds me of someone I know who's highly intelligent and a real man in the world and a leader that I'm very familiar with, who cannot read novels. Cannot. Nonfiction, yes. Put in front of him any kind of a nonfiction, anything, he does great. But I think he too probably suffers from this. I think a lot of people do. People curious about my lifelong jousting with a neurological disorder naturally wonder how it complicates my job. They might notice that in my speeches and press conferences, I sometimes weigh down my sentences with words like iterate, demonstrable, contextualize, and foundational. I love it. I mean, he's really a Californian because to me, some of the people who I found who really have best vocabulary are Californians. And I'm not quite sure why that is. Californians have a real grasp of the language. Look at how many of our rappers come from California. And man, they can spit it out, baby. When I was in my early shout out to my hometown of Oakland, by the way. When I was in my early 20s, I found a dictionary that was typographically friendly and studied it front to back as a way to command words that would show my facility with the English language. This was no doubt compensation for my peculiar wiring. Through hard work and persistence, I have overcome a lot of obstacles on the path to becoming a more confident public speaker. To me, he's one of the bests. He's enrapturing as a public speaker. He's like Obama. He's along the lines of Clinton, the great speakers. Also Kennedy, but I mean, who can you compare to Kennedy? Probably no one. You can also say that Reagan was an amazing speaker as well. Certainly none of the Bushes. But anyways, I can't manage the spatial tracking of looking down and up. It feels like vertigo. Reading from a teleprompter is easier only because the lines appear with plenty of space. Well, I mean, I don't understand why you have to explain that. Everybody reads from a teleprompter. Actors on stage read from teleprompters. Dyslexia explains my compulsion to master every facet of policy and every number in the state budget, and maybe even my fastidious note-taking and record-keeping. In a banker's box filled with objects from my growing up years, I can find my report cards from grammar school. Gavin mixes up his letters. My third grade teacher wrote, his D's are B's. That happened to me when I was younger. I think I also might have been dyslexic when I was little, but I loved literature so much. I remember forcing myself to read. And I would also read a certain book many, many, many times, again and again and again. And I have one of my favorite books here at my home that I would read countless times. And I think that really helped me. I was sort of on my own little program there. Gavin can correctly pronounce S sounds in isolation in words, but not in conversation. When he speaks, he substitutes TH for S. But year after year, the word dyslexia never showed up in my records. The actual name of the affliction I suffered from remained a mystery to me and to my school, as it did with so many kids of that era. But you know what? We were a tougher breed back then. We didn't need labels. Nah, we didn't need labels. People just were people. People did what they wanted to do. You had glam rock bands. They didn't have to explain it. You had Queen. They didn't have to explain it. You had David Bowie. They didn't have to explain it. We were the no labels generation. We were the last of the no labels generation. I think with all this labeling, that's what's really, the labeling has really screwed people up. The labeling. I got through childhood by compartmentalizing the world because I didn't have words. So many of my experiences as a kid never got imprinted as memories. I didn't have the ease of language that my sister had, the vividness which Hillary can summon the past. It's almost as if she is the older sibling. Oh, man, I never even realized that before. This is making me think about a lot of people I know who might be on this spectrum. Storytelling and drinking ran together on the Newsom side of my family. They might as well have been the Irish twins, the way one prepared the ground for the other, or the way one watched out for the other. Storytelling kept drinking from getting sloppy. Liquor transmuted into lore. If the stories were told well and repeated enough times to be firmly planted into the next generation, vice might yet be redeemed, or so believed by my great-grandmother, Belinda Newsom, a.k.a. Belle, the dowager with snow-white hair whose trips around the rosary beads were all-day affairs. Days of yore, people. Days of yore. Days of long time gone by, huh? When people actually used to pray with their rosary beads and, be rather pious. To tell a good story, you had to live a good life. And to live a good life, you had to engage with worlds different from your own. In San Francisco, a foreign place can be found on the other side of the hill. So that a boy growing up in the Marina District in the 70s needed only to venture to North Beach or Chinatown or the Mission or the Fillmore to interact with people whose music, art, dress, food, scene felt nearly like the occult. If you timed your adventure right and stayed open to its possibilities, you might even come home with a story worth passage on. My many years in San Francisco, I will never forget. Sometimes I'm tempted to move back there, but to me, a lot of the flavor is gone. I think a lot of the authentic realness that used to be San Francisco is no more. My father's a fascination with the theater of politics came to him, like the name William, through his father and his father's father. The first William, my great grandfather, was an associate of A.P. Giannini, founder of the Bank of Italy. You know who that is, right? Who, after the great earthquake and fire, with all the big banks had vanished, set up two planks on Washington Street Wharf to continue serving his customers. And I think they turned into the Bank of America. Not Wells Fargo, no. I think they were the Bank of America. The first William Newsom, a man with a good sense of humor and a bad marriage, opened Giannini's bank at 29th and Mission and extended his loans to common folk on a handshake. The fact that the Mission District was filled with Irish immigrants who needed a familiar touch made the branch an early model of community banking, and my great-grandfather a trusted figure among his tribe. The Bank of Italy, replicating this community model, eventually became the Bank of America. There you go. It was said that my great-grandfather turned into a Democrat out of his compassion for the working man. He served as the San Francisco Commissioner of Public Works, a member of the kitchen cabinet of Mayor James Rolfe, later the governor, and then the builder who erected Commerce and Lowell high schools, the famed Lowell High School that everybody wants to get into. All right, I've read a few of this. I'm going to silently read on my own and highly recommend this book. If you have any concerns about Gavin Newsom, Gavin, love you, Gavin. If you have any thoughts, concerns, questions, read the book. I know you can do it if you give it a try. Read. Learn. Read. And actually get the book. I've started a thing where I'm going to the library and getting the New York Times paper. I have a subscription digitally, and I'm finding myself just like scroll, 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 scroll. When I read the actual paper, wow, my concentration level just shoots way up. How much a disservice we've done to ourselves with all of this digital nonsense. All right, everybody, that's it for me for now. Sending you love and light. This is your host, On the Coast.